Okay, peeps, welcome back. So today we're going to be going over the grayscale truss. With that being said, let's get it. All right, so I'm going to make this short and sweet for you guys today. I'm pretty tired from work, so we're just going to go ahead and get straight into it. Pretty much all I'm going to say here is that you guys have roughly, well, I can't say this for certain, but based on cycle timing, it looks like we have roughly about 3 to 4 months left to accumulate these, so just keep that in mind. All right, so after the giant flash crash, it does appear that LTCN and some of these other trusts, along with the native crypto, are recovering, so that's good. You can see some of these native cryptos are going up. So LTCN still holding this macro trend line. Again, kind of the buy area for that is anywhere from 1050 to 1150. I mean, if I were just to draw this thing as far out as possible, let's say November, I mean, you might be able to buy it at up to 1250 a share. I don't know that it's going to stay at that level for that long. Of course, time will tell, right? So you have this support, kind of this gap in support here that theoretically should be filled because usually gaps get filled. In this particular situation, the gap was on the downside, so the price should go back up and fill the gap on the way back up. Okay, so we did actually get a weekly close also below this resistance, and now it becomes resistance, but like I said again, this gap should fill with time. So 13 to 15 on that support. And we now have that gap there too. So we know pretty much it's more or less a guarantee. I'm not going to say exactly a guarantee, but mostly a guarantee that it is probably going to fill. 25 to 75 all the way up there at the upper resistance, and then 54 at the swing high. So you guys probably have not seen this in a while. I'm going to show you this again. Okay, so the next levels we're looking at here is once we get past this big fat control bar here, which is where that swing high was, roughly about 75, which is where these candle wicks are right here, and then 100 to 135. And then I'm going to go ahead and say somewhere roughly about that $300 to $400 range, because you can see a lot of the candles traded kind of pretty much more or less in that area. Getting closer to 500 up in there towards the all-time highs at 510 is much less traded than 3 to 400, so that's the reason why I list that off. And then 510 and above and beyond that. So in terms of the returns here, we're looking at, we'll just basically go based off the price here, so roughly about 27%, 130%, and 367%. So a quick note that I wanted to point out here is that we did get oversold. So based on this flash crash, we got oversold. Okay, usually when this happens, we do have big moves to the upside, and that pretty much indicates the bottom. In this case, you can see this was a bottom, but then it did go lower. Again, it was a flash crash, kind of a black swan event, so that can't be predicted. But usually when you get an oversold RSI, that does happen. So same thing on BCHG. Same thing on HZEN. ETCG. I could keep going over all of these. ETHE, which is now a spot ETF. PhilG, not quite oversold, but pretty close. GBAT, oversold slightly. GLIV, same thing. G-Link, definitely oversold on that one. You can see the shade of red. GSOL, not so much. That would be on the back end of the spot ETF for Solana. I don't know what's going on with GXLM. So it's just kind of chopping around. Mana, oversold. Zcash, oversold. And Zcash, as you guys can see, has had a massive rebound. So we'll go now over to BCHG. Plus, the actual Zcash token has also been going up. I don't know if you guys are aware of that, but we did sell out of ours, just so y'all know. We moved it over to cash, but kind of wish we hadn't, because it just kept going up anyways. So, whoops. It happens, unfortunately. So, BCHG. So again, we have a gap pretty much right, not exactly filling the resistance level, but in between the resistance and the upper resistance here. So support. I'm going to do the same thing actually that I did with LTCN. So we're going to drag the zone out a little bit. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. So there we go. All right, so you guys can see that the trend line here does actually go up and kind of meet this resistance here right around the time that Bitcoin should be going to all-time highs. Again, LTCN BCHG are oscillators to, I guess it would be the Bitcoin Grayscale Trust. In this case, I forget exactly what the ticker symbol is, but GBTC, I think that's it. So these are oscillators to GBTC. But yeah, anyways, so price should theoretically be somewhere in here, if maybe even above here by that time, if we haven't moved up already before then. So as of right now, we're looking at 530 to 580 at support, 680 to 770 at resistance. Above that, you got 10 and a quarter to 1260, 18 to 20, and then 24 up at the highs. So I'll just give you guys the measure move from the trend line. So 30%, 118%, 250%, and roughly about 335% respectively. HZEN, we're still within this falling wedge. You can see it bounced pretty much perfectly off support and the bottom of the wedge. So this support level as of right now is going to be the buy zone. So 250 to about $3. And then you have roughly about 380 to 420, 680 to 810, and then 10 and a half. Once we get above that, we can talk about it. So you're looking at roughly about 67%, 216%, and 310% respectively. And I mean, the prices, you can see the price right here. This wick low, the last time we were at this level was all the way back in February. So that was basically retracing the price for up to 6 months. It's pretty cheap if you ask me. So ETCG, this thing, for some reason, I don't know why, it did have a pretty big pop. So that's interesting because ETC, Ethereum Classic, didn't really do much of anything. So yeah, I'm guessing a big buyer probably stepped in there and scooped up some shares. I'm not sure because you can see the volume candle here is pretty big. So anyways, $8.70 to $10 is going to be support right now. And then I'd say all the way up here, we'd be looking at roughly about 16. And then somewhere between 18 to 20 would be those levels up there. So we'll just tap the bottom of the support here because it probably is going to retest at some point. So 57% and 100%. ETHE, again, we got a nice bounce on ETHE. I'm guessing we probably saw these bounces based on the big 10% gainer in stocks that we had yesterday. So, well, it wasn't 10% for, the market. It was 10% on our portfolio. But yeah, it was a pretty huge recovery day. So that would be my guess, is something like that probably caused this to go up like that. So cup and handle pattern. The target, again, for that is all the way up here at the previous highs, 46. Right now, I would basically say that pretty much where we bounced at the bottom of this candle, you can see these candle lows right here, roughly about $18, $19 somewhere in there is going to be that support. So below that, 11 to 15.50. This is now resistance. So roughly about 23.50 up to 28.50, and then you have, of course, 46 all the way up there at the top. So you'd be looking at roughly about 52% and as much as roughly about 150% there. However, if it does pull back into the support, which again, I don't think it's going to do, 158% to roughly about 310% respectively. PhilG, this thing is just ungodly dirt cheap. I cannot even believe it's this low. I'm actually quite shocked. So lower support here, 550 to 1220. We did close below this kind of zone here. So this is unfortunately now resistance. You can see this kind of shooting star candle here, although I don't necessarily think it's bearish because it's green. So 37 to 40 at resistance. And then basically at the all-time highs up here is roughly about $400. So if it does go to lower level, which is possible, I'm not going to say it's not, 370 and roughly about 4,300% respectively. And from this resistance, assuming that that's where you wanted to buy, you'd be looking at roughly about almost 1,000%. So GBAT, we bounced off the support. I kind of expected as much because it happened back here too. So 450 to 510 support, 790 to $10 at resistance, and then 32 at the highs up here. So you're looking at roughly about 117 to roughly about 588% there. GLIV, so we're sitting almost perfectly on support. You can't really see it because it's a doji, but it's there. It's just kind of sitting at the top of the zone. So 1150 to roughly about 1450 at support. And then all the way up at the swing high up there at 80. Again, this is previous resistance we're looking at here that flipped into support. So theoretically, this zone should hold. If it does not, which again, I think it probably will, you're looking at 2 to about 350 per share. And again, that's the bear market lows. So I really, really highly doubt we're going to get down that far. So 484% move here. G-Link, this thing came down and tested this lower support zone. It really just did not want to go below there. You can see this huge buying wick right here. Yeah, that's a lot of buying pressures. So because I mean, the longer the wick, the more the buying pressure. That's kind of how you can tell whether this is a really bullish candle or not. You can see something similar here. And then we blasted straight off to the upside. I'm not necessarily sure that's going to happen, but you can kind of see the possibility here. So 39 to 45 at support, 65 to 85, or we'll say 84 at resistance up there, and then 220 all the way up at the highs. So you're looking at roughly about 90% to 395%. Now, if I were to measure from the top of this candle, let's say 65%, and then all the way up to 336% gain. GSOL, this one is, so it did close above this triangle, so I'm going to say that, or I shouldn't say the triangle, but yeah, it is actually the triangle. So, but what I meant to say was the top trend line here. So I'm going to say this top trend line is going to be support. So 408. We'll just round it up and say 410. The all-time high up there at 580, you're looking at 40%. If it does get back down to the support, which in all honesty, I mean, with the dump we've seen in crypto and the flash crash and stuff, this thing didn't really move. My guess is we're probably not going to get back down here. So, but to each his own. So 170 to $200 at support there. That would basically give you roughly about a 220% move on that one. So GXLM sitting perfectly on this line. We talked about this line. It did play out like I expected. Support below that, if you want to know, is 5 to roughly about 1160. The line is 25, and then the targets are going to be roughly about 52.50. We'll just say $59 and roughly about $70 all the way up there at that wick high. So the measured moves would be roughly about 113%, 137%, and 180% respectively. Mana, so this one is this is interesting. I'm not sure what happened here with this wick. So there is a lot of candle tops down here. Maybe that's the reason why it got bought up. I'm not really sure, but it was all the way down at $5.52. And you can see this green candle in the background here, 36,000 shares traded. If you look up on the left here, you'll see it. 36,000 shares traded, and it just had a massive bullish wick here. So I suspect it's probably going to get back above this line. So we'll just say this line at $11 is support. The level below that is basically $1 to roughly about $3.50 a share. Above that, so above that resistance, roughly about $18 to $20, and then 70 all the way up at the highs. So 92% and roughly about 578% respectively. Zcash, this thing just had a monster candle. Again, I have no idea what happened, but this thing clearly did not want to get below this white line. So again, the white line is going to be support. The candle did not close above this zone, so this zone still is technically resistance, and that is going to be 435 to 510, and then you have $8 to 970 and 10 1/4. I mean, I'd be looking for a pullback to 315. I'm not sure it's going to have it with this monster candle, but we'll just have to wait and see. So the move here would be 62%, 205%, and roughly about 225% respectively. Anyways, hope you all enjoyed this content. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.